Hey, this is Regina Y. Favors with Overcoming Life Tired Setback. And so today's topic is be sure that you have the capacity to solve the problem. Many times, the reason why we oftentimes get um, burned out or we become life tired is usually due to this idea that we're trying to solve problems for which we do not have the capacity. For example, there could be a relationship problem, whether it's a friendship, a family dynamic, or romantic relationship, and we're trying to cover someone else, and it's having a negative impact on our own lives. The person who is an adult um, maybe lacks a job, right? Doesn't want to get a job, or maybe refuses to get a job. They don't want to keep a place. They don't want to do adult things. So then what happens is we often volunteer our time, we volunteer our mind, we volunteer our heart, our resources, our finances to try to cover them. Wherever they have a gap, we see the gap, or we discern the gap, we interpret it as a gap, we call it a gap, and then we become the gap filler. The problem with that strategy, because there may be times where you may have to actually help somebody in their life, the problem with that strategy is that in your own regular waking real life, you have your own um, issues that you need to work through. You have your own adult responsibilities that require you to be conscious and conscientious about um, addressing them and resolving those issues. Every part of our lives has some form of setback. Every decision that we make, there's a consequence in it. There's a setback likely worked in it. There's a delay in it. And then there's some moving forward, right? And when you take on the responsibilities of adult people, and I'm not talking about these adult people who might be experiencing a life setback, maybe they ended up having their house burned down, or there was a flood, a natural disaster, they lost their job due to the pandemic, or the financial crisis. Those are exceptions to the rule. I'm talking about everyday people where there's calm and peace in the land, and there is no inclination for that person to go and be productive in life, to go and keep a job, to maintain their own place, to pay for their own place, and not always ask money from other people. When you cover that person, you deplete your resources, you deplete your time, your mind, your mental faculties, your psychology, your spiritual, your relationship with God. You deplete so many areas in your life. And even though it looks like you are going and you are surviving the situation, you've gotten over the hump and helping them, and then it took a little bit of out of you, but you didn't collapse, you didn't die or something like that. All you are essentially doing is storing up what later become a burnout. You are storing up delays in your life where you need to address particular areas in your in your person. It could be trauma that you never got a chance to address because when you were a child, you were told to shut up. You didn't have an opinion as a child. Then when you got to your 20s, you still couldn't speak. You still couldn't do the things that you really wanted to do. You couldn't speak your mind. And then later in your 30s and your 40s is when you really wanted to start expressing yourself. But then you brought in another relationship that kind of created a distraction in your life. You might have fallen in love, or it might have been a relationship where you entertained a toxic dynamic. And so you keep delaying and delaying and delaying healing. And I have a great example of myself. I remember back in 1998, that's when I had the opportunity to begin a reflection process. I had just exited a relationship that where the person called me out of my name, and I ended that relationship. And then I said to myself out loud while I was in my house, I said, I'm tired dealing with this type of stuff, I need to figure out what's going on with me and why I keep attracting the same kind of people. So I'm not going to get involved with anybody. And instead of adopting and beginning that process, what I ended up doing that day was, okay, I'm just going to go to the mall, walk around, maybe go to the movies. When I did that, I ran into a devil. I literally ran into a devil. And so then that created a distraction that hindered the healing process. Uh, that relationship became a very toxic, domestic violence type relationship. I actually had to call the police. I let them come live with me. Um, it was a number of factors, right? And so then that relationship officially ended, but then I still did not give time to healing because then I was able to I got back on track. That relationship and the friendships before that relationship took me off track. And so whenever you are trying to redeem the time, you want to get back on track. So I got back on track. I enrolled in college, in community college. Then I transferred to the university, San Diego State University. And then I was on track. Now, I still had distractions. I still got into distractions, of course, with friends, friendships, but I did not necessarily engage in another relationship again. And so um, that was from 98. I got into, I think I was in community college 98, then 99 to 2002 for university, and then I got my master's in 2005. And so no relationship. So from between 2000 to 2013, I was not in a relationship. I did not entertain any other type of activity as well. And so then I said in a previous audio that in 2013 I met another devil, and the reason why I kept meeting devils is because during the time I was by myself and I was celibate and I was not entertaining any type of relationship, I did not take the time to address my pain. The pain of running into devils is something that started when I was younger and I was molested. That was truly my first devil, right? If you want to call it that. That was truly my first devil. So that person who molested me when I was younger was a person that showed up when I was older, just with another face. And it showed up again after a period of time where I was by myself and I thought I was safe, and it showed up again. One 98 and one in 2013. And the reason why that type of person keeps showing up, and it can be any type of person who you are used to in terms of a devil or a distracting force, right? Someone is trying to, it could be a jealous person, an envious person, someone's trying to kick you off your path. That's essentially who that type of person is. Anyone who is trying to keep you off, kick you off your path, trying to compromise you, or usher you into a process of compromise where you are doing drugs, where you may be prostituting yourself, you may be stripping, you may be doing all these different types of things. You may be sleeping with a lot of different people. That goes for men and women. And so that person is whoever that type of person is. A lot of times you can find that person from childhood. Someone started you down that path. Someone introduced you. If you are still struggling with drugs at 40, 50, 60 years old, someone introduced you to that somewhere in your teens, when you were a teenager, or in your 20s or your 30s or your 40s, right? And so that situation, I kept running into a devil because when I was alone, when I had time to myself, I didn't take the time to address whatever pain I had. I wasn't journaling. I just was by myself. And so it took to 2024 for me to come into this understanding that I need to address pain. I need to actually heal. So although I tried to begin the process in 1998 and I got distracted, I'm in 2024 now, and this is the first time I'm addressing healing. I'm addressing any type of processes that I did not do before. So when you are trying to think about how to solve a person's problem or solve somebody's problem, or take on a leadership role or take on any type of role that requires you to solve a problem, be sure that you have the capacity, because sometimes a job could be for you, but it could be ahead of your time. You're not ready mentally. I said this in a previous audio as well. I was supposed to interview for a full-time teaching position, and I got the call. Well, not the call, but I got the email inviting me to an interview, and also the teaching demonstration. And so I was shocked because I had received um, rejection letters regarding that position. So just out of the blue, I get an email. So I'm like, okay, no problem. I'll go ahead and get everything together. I got the PowerPoint, I got the teaching demonstration stuff that I wanted to go over. I I, I was preparing. That was a Friday evening. Then I got up on Saturday, and I was getting everything. I was basically finalizing what I know that I was going to talk about and the types of handouts that I was going to give to the faculty committee, the hiring committee. By Sunday morning, literally by Sunday morning, I did all that prep work and I was ready to do it and somewhat excited as well. But by Sunday morning, I knew I couldn't interview for that position. I just knew it. I just knew it. And so I sent the email to the chair of the English department, and I told her, and also the faculty committee, and said I'm not going to be able to interview for the position, and I'm not going to, and I do not wish to schedule or reschedule for the interview. And so she was shocked, of course, and I was shocked. I was turning down something. And so what I realized is that I need to heal. I have not healed. I have not gone through the process of healing, at least from 2006, because that was the time of my correction. But I did not continue, or I did not necessarily initiate the process of healing since 1998. So all that time I've been going and going and going and going, and uh, having good productive parts of my life and then some unproductive parts of my life, and it caught up with me. I'm at my brick wall. I'm at my fork in the road. I'm at my cul-de-sac. It's time to heal. So sometimes you may have to give that position away, let it go, even though it could affect you financially. You may have to let it go, because if you don't, you're going to find yourself collapsing somewhere. You're going to collapse, and it's like wearing a bunch of bags. It's like taking on too many responsibilities and not really assessing. Another way that you want to think about, in terms of be sure that you have the capacity to solve the problem, is the recent situation with the Harvard president, Dr. Claudine Gay, and then the other presidents of other colleges that were accused of agreeing with genocide, and so they had to go before the House, and they had had the university lawyers right behind them, and they were asked a lot of questions from the Congress people, or the Senate people, wherever they went up against, right? And so they couldn't answer those questions. Here it is. They are presidents of colleges. They have doctorate degrees. They should reflect experts in their field, but they couldn't answer a simple question about genocide. And that's not to attack them. That's just to call attention to the fact that whatever problem you are taking on as a responsibility and being accountable for, you need to be sure that you know how to solve that problem. That means that you have to understand what the problem is. It's not all the people who are attacking you, it's all the people who are being attacked on your campus. And then what is your policy? This is not always a free speech issue. This is a particular issue where people are being attacked on the campus. So how do you solve the problem? If you're going to take on the leadership role, whether it's a faculty member, whether it's a committee chair, whether it's the chair of an English department, whether it's a business responsibility, Harvard president, MIT, it doesn't matter. Whatever the leadership role, whatever the responsibility that you want to take on, be sure that you have the capacity to solve the problem. Because sometimes you can have the knowledge, you can have the experience, you can have the expertise, but you don't necessarily have the mental capacity right now. You don't necessarily have the physical capacity. You don't necessarily have the financial capacity to make that type of decision, to implement any types of decisions. You may not have the spiritual capacity. Some things may be, um, divinely ordered and designed for you, but it could still be way before your time. There's a scripture in the Bible that reads that the steps of a good man are ordered of the Lord, and God delights in every step. So that means there's an ordering to your steps. Just because you have the zeal, and just because you have the knowledge, and just because you have the expertise, doesn't mean that you are in order. You just happen to have the expertise. You have the knowledge, right? But there may be the fact that you couldn't answer questions, or the fact that you couldn't carry out the role, or the fact that you decided to commit fraud in the role. You have a lot of people now who are in major leadership types of positions who are going down for fraud. Okay, somewhere in your journey, uh, you committed fraud, but you weren't caught and you never addressed it. Because now you get into a public facing role where there's a lot of um, political political backlash to your decision making, and now you are thrust forward to the spotlight where you now have to answer questions and you don't know how to answer those questions. But in the time where you were by yourself and no one knew your name, and you can make decisions that were sound type decisions, that was the time to address any areas of deficiency or degeneracy or lack of understanding. That was the time to do it. You don't wait till you get the job. You don't wait till you get the role. You don't wait till you get the position that's paying you a lot of money. You don't wait till you get the fame. You don't wait till you get all these people loving you to now beginning to now begin addressing issues. If you have a financial mismanagement issue before you win the lottery, you're going to have a financial mismanagement issue when you win the lottery. If you don't know how to work your money and save your money and create financial stability where no one knows your name and no one knows how much money you make, once you win the lottery or get a lot of money, you're all of your issues and everything that you have suppressed and never addressed is just going to come to the surface. But now you got tons of people with their hands out and in your ear and calling you and suing you and all different types of things, but you didn't when you didn't have any of that and it was just by yourself, you didn't take the time to address or create a financial system as a as just an individual. And so once you get the money, once you get the fame, once you get the power, you find yourself spending money. You find yourself not making the best financial decisions. And within a year, and sometimes we'll say 1 to 5 years, but usually it's within 1 to 3 years, you have lost all that money. There was this case about a lottery winner who won $450 million, and he decided to leave his wife and go with his mistress. And within a very short time, and I'm not talking about 5 years, I mean literally within a very short time, he lost all 450 million. That money just burned in his pocket. For one, he was out of order because he left his wife. Here it is. She put up with him all those years. She took care of him, helped him, or whatever. And then when he wins money, he decides to leave her and go with the mistress. The mistress took all the money. So now he doesn't have that money anymore. He's much older, and he doesn't have anybody to take care of him because he's also sicker, of course. And so here it is. He could have built and sustained a relationship with his wife, but he likely used her as a come up, meaning that she probably took care of the majority of the bills. And then when he made it, so to speak, He decided to leave her. I don't need her anymore. I'm going to get me a better person. Okay. Well, had he addressed that kind of attitude much earlier before he won money, it is likely that he would have stayed with his wife. No guarantee, but if you address this idea that I think I can get better, okay, and you decide not to marry that person, and then you just go get better, then you sort of address that issue. But you don't stay in the marriage and have that type of attitude and not address it. Because as soon as it looks like you're going to win and it's a false win, you're going to now use that attitude as a basis for any decision you're going to make to leave, to exit. But if you have the attitude you think you are superior to your wife or to your husband, why do you think you are superior to that person? After all, you married them. Why would you marry someone you believe is beneath you, who is inferior to you? If you believe you are superior, then why don't you marry another person you perceive as superior? It doesn't make any sense. It makes sense to the person who may be a narcissist, who may be an emotional abuser. They need somebody to abuse. They need somebody below them so they can feel higher up than that person. But again, the logic is off to me. Why would you engage and live life with a person you feel is beneath you? It doesn't make sense to me. It may make sense to other people. And so, if you begin to address your superiority complex, and some people just don't have that ability to reflect on who they are as an individual. However, but if you did, if you began to address that, and then you look at the person that you are with, and you say this person is inferior to me, or this person is superior to me, what am I going to do about this? Am I going to marry this person, or am I not going to marry this person? As actually, I can just wait for the person I really want to be with. That's the problem that I have with some men, that they'll go on ahead and marry the person that they don't really want to be with. Use that person as a come up because the person has a job and resources, and then once they come up in life, they drop that come up woman and they go marry some woman who did nothing for them, who would leave them in a heartbeat if they got sick. And so, when you're thinking about the capacity to solve the problem, I also want you to think, just because you have money in the bank does not mean that that money is available for someone else. You can have $50,000 in the bank. And just because a family member comes to you with a need doesn't mean you necessarily have the money to give to that person. Because remember, you are an adult and your mortgage is $3,000 or 4,500 or something like that, or your rent is 20,000 or I mean a 20 $2,000 or more. Okay, your job, there's no guarantee for jobs anymore, but you still have a job and the job pays well, right? Okay, that $50,000 is taking care, is really a cushion for if something happens with the job, if something happens with the house. What if you had a fire? What if you had a flood? Okay, that's going to take money to pay for way before the insurance kicks in. So we have to, just because we have something and does not necessarily mean that what we have is for somebody else. So that means you may not have the capacity to solve the problem, even if you have a lot of money in the bank, right? Because that's your money and you have a right to your money. And the person that who needs your help is always a person who doesn't want to maintain their money. So all you're doing is pouring into, if you give that person money, you're pouring into a well that refuses to accept instruction. That person refuses to receive instruction about how to do better with their finances. They're always jumping from place to place. They jump from relationship to relationship. They know it's time to stop being in a relationship and take some time away from it, but they continue to get into relationships. Okay, and the more you keep talking to them, the more they keep ignoring them. So then you don't have the capacity to solve the problem. They don't want the problem solved. Just because you mentally and reasonably and logically know that it's time for that person to sit down and not be involved in a relationship does not mean that they believe the exact same thing. So you telling them something about what they need to do and how to assess and resolve their issues, is not going to be helpful because they don't care. A lot of times these people are in a state of rebellion. They know to do right, but they refuse to do right. They know to do right, but they don't care. So when they are in that type of understanding, that type of life setback, they are in rebellion. There's nothing you can do. They're going to have to go through the hard road of that rebellion and the consequences that are connected to it, and they're going to have to fail. And you're going to have to let them fall. And that's just it. And so you don't have the capacity to raise them up. You don't have the capacity to solve their rebellion problem. They have to go through God. They have to repent to the Lord. Uh, Even if they don't believe in God, somewhere their rebellion is going to take them through consequences where they're going to fail and fall. And you're going to have to let them. You don't have the capacity to raise them back up. All you're going to do is the more you continue to engage in trying to help them, is going to bring you down. And you're and it's little by little. It never happens just right off the bat. It's little by little. It's little compromises along the way. It's little ignoring your thoughts and feelings and attitudes and belief systems, right? As you revealing too much and them taking advantage. And it's just little decisions along the way that lead you down a path where you have leveraged your house. Here it is. They've gone to jail, and you paid the bond money, right? And they need to show up for court, and they decide to not show up for court. So now they're going to take your house. You keep giving them money, and you don't have enough money. Here it is. You lost your job, and so you don't have enough money to pay for your mortgage or your apartment. So you're going to be evicted. um, um, their violent behavior is not affecting you. The drive-by is not coming through your house. All the bullets are coming through your house. So it's you start in one decision to try to save them, but they have decided to remain in rebellion, and all it's going to do is continue to take you down the wrong path. That's a different path. God already ordered your path, but you're trying to jump off the ordered path, the narrow path, until onto a disordered path, the broad path. And all it is that you're going to have hurts and pains. You may have mental issues later, right? um, you're definitely going to have financial issues. You're going to have issues with your soul because you're compromising your soul. Your soul is your mind, your will, and emotions. And so it could take years to recover. But if you assess who you are now as an individual and what you can and cannot do, what your capacity is, you define it. Not that other person defines it, but you define it, especially when you're in a peace situation. See, we ignore this because we're in peace. It's only in chaos and trouble um, and disruption that we begin to scramble. We procrastinated all that process that we should have been doing in terms of learning. And then when we are in a chaotic, toxic, or disruptive type situation, now we're trying to find answers when answers were really there in peace. And then when you are by yourself and you are with your mind and you don't entertain a lot of distractions, you can hear your mind going through the process of people you have dealt with in your past and what you did in those situations, and how you need to now make a decision. I cannot engage in that kind of decision making again. When I got out of the relationship with a narcissist, he kept going back and forth with his ex, and I realized that I lost brain energy, literally brain energy in dealing with him. I was so close to having a mental break. I could feel it. And then I said, my life cannot take many more hits. I remember it just as clear as day. That was in 2016, and I maintained that resolve right today, that my life cannot take many more hits. I know that if I engage in another situation that is very hindering and disruptive and toxic and sinful and chaotic, I could lose my mind. I could literally lose my mind. I would have to check myself into a mental health facility, or I could end up going to jail because I'm dealing with a person who is who who likes that type of activity, or I could just have a heart attack altogether. And in any of those dynamics, those categories, those situations, recovery would take years, and there's no guarantee. If I'm in a situation with a person who is violent, I could lose my life. Okay, there's no recovery after death. If I'm in a heart attack situation and that means I'm losing my job because I'm now bedridden, okay, the recovery time is there's no guarantee, right? If I'm in a mental health facility, okay, when am I? There's no guarantee that I'm going to get up off that floor. Some situations, some life situations can affect you so bad that you collapse on the floor, and there's no guarantee when you're going to get up from off that floor. And all the work that you have put into helping you and trying to build a business or trying to get an education or whatever, all that work is now put back on hold. So that's what I want you to think about when you're thinking about your capacity. Just because you have time, just because you have finances, doesn't mean that you're supposed to be the does not mean that you're supposed to be the person to solve their problem. Just because you are by yourself does not mean that you don't need to address your issues. You're just by yourself. That's it. You're just in celibate mode, or you are just in a mode where you don't want to date. You just want to be single right now. No kids, just peace. Okay, actually, that's the time to address. It's not that you get out of that season in your life and get into a relationship and begin addressing issues. What sense does that make? No, you begin addressing issues when you don't have people in your life, when you don't have a lot of trouble in your life, when you don't have any distractions or destructive types of behaviors or anything like that, where you're not compromising, because you need to see and reflect on these ideas that I compromised myself back in 1990, or I compromised myself back in 2005, or I compromised myself here. I gave too much. I covered too many people. That's how I ended up homeless. I did not save enough money. I always needed to ask money. Whatever the issues are, the things that you oftentimes call attention to other people, are usually the things that are really wrong with you. It's called projecting. So when you find yourself calling attention to somebody else's issues and problems, it's usually that you are the one who has that actual issue and problem. You are now attracting who you are. And so then you got to stand in front of that mirror and look at your capacity and make sure that you do have the capacity, which includes time and right season, to solve that problem. If you do not have the courage to say, I can't do it right now, I need to go through this healing process before I make a decision to go forward with that particular opportunity. Because just because it's an opportunity does not mean that it's an opportunity for you to do it right now. I am life tired. I am burned out over some decisions I have made in my life from way back at 20 years old, that have now caught up with me. I'm life tired. So now I'm in my healing season that I should have taken back in 1998. And a lot of the trouble, uh, um, consistent and repeating trouble, began in 2006 when I lost when I had to go through correction. I was homeless between '08 and 2013, going back and forth with shelters, family, just a lot of different types of issues that I was having. And I should not have gotten into a relationship with someone in 2013. That lasted 2 years and 8 months. It was toxic. It was damaging. It was so psychologically damaging. I It was so psychologically damaging. While I was working, having to deal with that, and I had to make a crossroad decision in 2016 regarding that situation. So then I had to go through a process of between 2016 and really up to now, because it is now where I say I actually need to heal. So this is Overcoming Life Tired Setback. be sure that you have the capacity to solve the problem. Just because it's an opportunity does not necessarily mean that it's time for you to solve it. But when you know for certain that you have the capacity mentally, psychologically, spiritually, financially to solve the problem, you will know it then. If this is the time for you to heal, heal. If this is a time for you to rest, rest. Don't get to a place in your life where someone has to take you out on a stretcher, and whatever that means. Okay? So, overcoming life's tired setback, be sure that you have the capacity to solve the problem. Uh, Please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Also, visit reginawhyfavorites.com for tips and resources. Thank you very much for listening.